What is up, you guys? It is February 23rd. We are here to break down all the Six Nations action from the weekend, the agony, the absolute ecstasy for some of you. Man, this was a wild round. Now, I did tell you I was going to break down England versus Scotland live. I couldn't do it, but I have a very momentous reason. This was one of the most important weeks of my life. I'll tell you at the end. We're here to talk rugby first. But let's start with the English versus the Scottish. I have just watched the game. Wow. Was England awful? Is Scotland cursed? Both very good questions. Ultimately, the Red Rose did prevail. They got the Calcutta Cup secured at home at Twickers, but it was 16-15. You had the feeling that the English should have been way too good for Scotland, especially after what they did to France last week. The French are heavyweights. They've got Dupont, the best player in the world. They've got an amazing forward pack. Somehow, England finished over the top of them. Ran in tries at the end, beat the French. Well, they had a dip this week, so the English are still inconsistent. Bit of an ugly performance from the English lads, but if you are a fan of England, I actually have some good news that I'm going to finish on here, because I have a bit of a hot take about this win that I think should give you a bit of confidence. I'm even going to go as far as to say they could still be on track to win this whole competition. Now, if there was a theme to this weekend, I reckon it was this. The underdogs pretty much hit hard unexpectedly early in all three games. But the top dogs went back to their old tricks. They went back to what they knew worked in terms of the game plan. They went back to their superstars. This was a good weekend for the superstars of World Rugby. You see Dupont there raising his arms. He was one of them, but there were others as well. We're going to talk about them. But in terms of this game, I mean, what can you really say about this? At the beginning, Scotland was all over them. They scored in the third or fourth minute. It was that combination of Finn Russell, the man who's got the stink face here in this little image. Poor guy. But he was at his mercurial best in terms of attacking play. He broke the English line regularly. And if you had to really single out two players from Scotland who had that X factor that the team sorely needs, it was Van der Merwe out in the back three, and it was, of course, Finn Russell at 10. They were pulling the strings. They had the English in all kinds of trouble. Now, how did they do that? How did they kind of break through so easily at times? I think it comes down to England's greatest strength, which can sometimes be their Achilles heel. It's that rush D. When England gets out of the line in that arrow formation, if they crunch you in midfield, you are screwed. Just ask the All Blacks. They did that to them in 3 different games last year. Smash them, bro. That's what we say in New Zealand when you nail someone in midfield. Well, England do smash you, bro. But the problem is if you get around them, sometimes you are inviting a little bit of space out in the tram lines. A little bit of space out there in that wing channel. And we saw that today. Scotland was good enough to exploit it. Essentially, I felt that the theme of the first half was the Scottish width and accuracy of passing was exposing the English. It was getting around that rush English D. And at one point, Marcus Smith, playing at the back again, Finn Smith was at 10, Marcus Smith was at fullback. Marcus Smith had a bit of a howler. He was guilty of missing a tackle on a Scottish strike play. You don't want to just single out one missed tackle. There were many missed tackles, but it did speak a little bit to why he's playing at fullback, why he's not up there defending at number 10. Not to mention the statistics of the guy who did play at 10 for England today, which I'll tell you about in 1 second. But look, essentially, Scotland had the momentum, but England weathered the storm. They went back to what works, got that accuracy in their defensive line, and then hit the breakdown harder in the second half. You had the familiar names Curry and Earl. You were hearing them constantly on commentary. That's because they were all over the breakdown like white on rice. If there was a turning point in this game, I feel like it was in the 50th minute. Scotland were looking likely. England turned them over. It was Earl. It was one of the Curry brothers, someone with Curry on their shirt. Those twin boys, Ben, Tom, they do an amazing job at the breakdown. And yeah, I think the breakdown pressure did start to get to Scotland in the second half. England ratcheted up the intensity there. And Finn Smith, he nailed a kick from 50 meters out. And that was 70 minutes into the game. That was pretty telling. And it was at that point that the commentators mentioned that Finn Smith was defensively maybe the MVP for England. He was leading the tackle count. So that might be why you're seeing him in there at 10. He's good on attack. He was kicking the ball well when he had to step up for one of those crunch penalties. But is it also that he's just a little bit more reliable as that first up defender in that 10 channel? That might be what Borthwick's thinking. But we hadn't heard the last from Scotland. Van der Merwe, instrumental again, scores a try. And then that man, that poor, cursed, vexed man from Scotland, the man there in that picture with the boo-boo face, he had to step up. He had to land the conversion. He couldn't do it. Look, it was a tough kick, guys. It was hard. There he is, Finn Russell. Great player, but he missed 3 conversions. So that's going to be one of the stories of the game. Three kicks he missed, might have missed a penalty. Either way, it would have made up the difference. They would have won if he had his kicking boots on. Well, spare a thought for him, because my view is that Scotland wouldn't have even been in this game if Russell hadn't been so good on attack in general play. So he might not be kicking like a metronome. He might not be a Johnny Wilkinson or a Dan Carter, but he keeps the Scottish in the game with his general play. So I don't think they're going to sack him anytime soon. You felt bad for him. Now, look, is England trash? Was it one-off last week against France? I don't know about that. And in fact, I was kind of encouraged from an English perspective that they won ugly. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, so Finn Russell misses the kick. They should have won it. I've seen England miss important kicks in the last 18 months. I remember the ball hitting the upright against the All Blacks. They would have won the game if that ball had gone through. So what I'm seeing overall is just a little bit of a momentum shift. I'm seeing the rub of the green starting to go the way of the English. I know we can't really praise them for that, but it's just an observation that they seem to be getting a little bit luckier. Things are just starting to fall their way. It's a good thing if you're an English fan. They won ugly, really ugly, to be honest with you, but they got a pretty easy run home. If I'm not mistaken, they got the Italians, they got the Welsh. They should win both of those games. So, guys, don't count England out. They're still in contention to possibly win this whole thing if they really rack up some bonus points in coming weeks. But let's be honest, it's going to come down to France and Ireland almost certainly. Let's briefly touch on the French. I saw that game this morning. Oh boy. Final score, 73-24. France absolutely did a demolition job on the Italians. Yikes. The Italians started hot. They ripped open France. You know, France looked a little porous on defense at times. They're certainly vulnerable there. I can certainly see Ireland hitting them pretty hard with their attack and possibly getting around them with some good strike plays if they can build a lot of phases. If Ireland can get 10, 15, 20 phases against France, I think France is vulnerable. But, man, when their attack clicked, I mean, they were just unstoppable. And, again, after a little bit of an early hiccup with Italy playing well, their outside backs looking good. Italy scores an early try. France went back to what works. Muscle at the breakdown. Set-piece dominance. Setting that rolling maul up. They just had the platform up front. They beat the Italians up front, and then you had Dupont pulling the strings beautifully. This was a return to form from Dupont after maybe a minor misstep against the English. He looked fantastic out there. I did a video asking if Dupont was overrated. Well, I think on the evidence of this game, he is rated quite fairly. Sure, Italy isn't one of the top 5 teams in the world, but nevertheless, they're pretty starchy opposition, and Dupont had his way with them. He had the ball on a string. He sniped beautifully. He scored some tries. He was muscular. He was physical. He was good on defense. He did everything you could have wanted. So I kind of felt like this was the game that France was always destined to win, even though they drew with Italy last year. Don't forget that. The Italy team is much improved. But France was basically expected to win this comfortably. And I think this was the snapback that I talked about a couple weeks ago. Okay, France lost a bit of a doozy to England, but get ready for the backlash. This was them tapering their game, sharpening up ahead of that clash with Ireland. And they got everything humming in this game. So you have to give the French full marks for this performance. You can question the opposition, but I think a fired-up Italy at home is actually not an easy fixture. I think that's a big banana peel, right? I think that's a game you can really slip up if you don't have your mind right. The French didn't have their minds right against England. They had their minds right today. So it's all going to come down to that France-Ireland fixture. How did the Irish do? Not well. Like I said, there was a theme this weekend. The underdogs hit hard. They exposed the soft underbelly of the heavyweights, found their weaknesses. The Irish defense was a little bit weak today. Looked vulnerable. But let's not get carried away here. Ireland won 27 points to 18 in Cardiff. This was a backs-against-the-wall performance from Wales. You all know that Gatland is gone. They got an interim coach. This felt like a bunch of players digging deep, making a statement. What else have we got to lose? Kamikaze attack. Let's run the ball. Let's not die wondering. Let's just go for it. And they had a bit of luck. There was actually a yellow card against Ireland for a high tackle on one of the wingers there, and that got upgraded to a red. So you had 20 minutes of 14 on 15, and it was pretty telling, that one of the tries in this Celtic clash that Wales scored, it was really on the wing, and that just showed the overlap. It was almost like, oh yeah, you were missing a defensive winger who could have rolled around, almost playing like fullback, could have rolled around and made that covering tackle. It kind of was just the numbers game coming into effect. And so Wales capitalized, and good on them for that. They certainly played well. But again, the favorites went back to their strengths, hitting the breakdown hard. They got the better of the Welsh in the second half. And then you had guys like James Lowe excelling, and you had Prendergast really excelling. Ireland's in a good spot with their number 10s. I think this Prendergast guy is really looking the goods. He missed the final kick, which didn't matter. He had one bounce off the posts, but it was a very long kick. It would have been about 50 meters. But otherwise, he made all the important kicks, and that kept them in the game. And that's what I liked about this performance from Ireland. Clearly, Wales were a bit more fired up on the day and giving it hell. But ultimately, Ireland was steady. They took the threes. I think that was smart. They just kept the scoreboard pressure on, and they got out of jail in the end. And, I think they went back to their defense, strengthened that up, tightened that up later in the game. There is a bit of a tendency to be drawn offside on defense from Ireland, so keep an eye on that. I think that what might decide the France-Ireland fixture coming up is discipline on defense. Both of these teams do have a tendency to get drawn offside, make a little bit of a mistake around that ruck area that's getting policed so heavily right now. So watch out for that. We'd love to think that it's going to be long, flowing, multi-phase tries that decides France versus Ireland. Don't be surprised if it comes down to some penalty kicks. That's what I think could happen. But we'll break down that game soon. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. It's going to be an absolute blockbuster. It should decide the winner of the Six Nations. But like I said, don't sleep on England. Yeah, it was ugly, but sometimes you got to win ugly. They're still in contention. Look, if France can beat Ireland, the bonus points could end up being pretty important this year. All right, guys, I mentioned that I couldn't do the live stream. Why was that? I was out of town getting an American passport. I just became an American citizen this week. It's been a 10-year long journey. It's one of the best feelings I've ever had. Amazing to have this security going into the future. And thank all of you who have supported me, supported this channel on this journey. A lot of you have been following for a long time, and you know about my immigration journey. I'm a Kiwi, but then I moved to Australia, spent most of my life there, and then I've been in the States for 10 years. And it's an amazing feeling to finally call myself an American after all these years. But I'm still an Aussie and a Kiwi. I've got 3 nationalities, but I think I'm going to stop there. I think 3 is plenty. All right, guys, I'll be back soon with more Six Nations action, Super Rugby action, all the action. I got you covered. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, please subscribe. I'll see you for another one real soon. Take it easy. Bye for now.